also offer therapy and community-based case management, where we can help girls that are maybe in our area that don't necessarily need a safe place to stay or are outside of our age range from 12 to 18. So we'll help them throughout as long as they need our support. We also have another arm that's really been growing this year, and that's our preventative program. We have a Reducing the Risk, where we go into schools, other community areas. We even go into like churches and share, or Girl Scout troops, where we can actually get in there and do some preventative work with specific themes around boundaries and consent and what does this looks like and how to stay safe. So those are some of the resources that we offer. We also can go into organizations and certify staff so that they can be trauma informed. So that's another program that we offer. So we're really just trying to hopefully prevent what we can, and then provide space where where people are in the need, in the throes of it. And so I'm really excited to be here to actually talk to people about how to keep children out of this space, right? Because that's our goal. It's not, our residential facility isn't our goal, our prevention is our goal, but we provide this for those that have been stuck and are needing our help. So really excited to talk to parents about practical ways to help their kids stay out of that space.
My name is Michelle Stilley, and I'm with the Child Advocacy Center of Northeast Missouri. I have worked there for about 18 years and have done a lot of the different roles that we have. Primarily, we provide services for children who have made disclosures of abuse or who are suspected to be victims of abuse, including sexual abuse, physical abuse, sex trafficking, exploitation. Really, any children that are a victim in any way or a witness to any type of crime are encouraged to come to the Child Advocacy Center, where they participate in forensic interviews with a trained forensic interviewer, with the goal being that they only have to talk about their experiences in detail that one time. Our interviews are recorded, and then the CAC provides services for as long as the family would like to have them. We have child and family advocates that work with the caregivers and connect them with resources and support that they need, so they can be in a great place to be able to provide support for their children. Which is really important, because one of the biggest determining factors for children to heal is to have one supportive caregiver. And I do believe that our advocates help some parents transition from a place where they are struggling with that support to a place where they can, which I'm really proud of. But we also connect every family, so not just the child victim that's there for the forensic interview, but their siblings and their non-offending caregivers with therapy as well. We have a wonderful therapy program that's growing all of the time, and they really help children get on the path to healing. Our advocates stay in touch with families for as long as they want, as I mentioned, but that includes through the duration of the court process if their case does proceed that route, which is really wonderful, because the families need that support the whole way. And then our forensic interviewers get to go to court and testify about that forensic interview, which is really great. In the state of Missouri, a common myth is that that forensic interview replaces the child's testimony, and we wish that that was true, but it doesn't because of different things. But when a child does have a forensic interview, I can say confidently that it significantly reduces the amount of time that a child has to spend on the stand, which is really wonderful for most children. So that is what we do. I am also very thankful and excited to be here. We encounter these victims on a daily basis, and educating caregivers about what to do if they suspect it, how to talk to those kids, is just so empowering and important to help keep our kids safe. So thank you for having me.
Hey everyone, my name is Jessica Seitz. I'm the Executive Director of the Missouri Network Against Child Abuse. And in that role, like, our organization kind of wears a lot of hats. So we're a statewide association. So our brick and mortar office is actually in Jefferson City, but our staff of 9 is spread throughout the state. So I actually am based here in St. Louis. So one of the things that we are is we are the State Association of Child Advocacy Centers. So Michelle and her team are one of our members, and in that role, we're responsible for developing and delivering a cornucopia of trainings for The forensic interviewers that Michelle spoke about, victim advocates, all those different individuals that are employed at the CAC, we want to make sure that they're trained and receive all the hours that they need. And that's something that we deliver at Monaca. We also do multidisciplinary team trainings for law enforcement, prosecutors, children's division workers, all those professionals that are involved in the investigation and response to child abuse. So that's kind of the CAC side of our work. We also have a pretty robust prevention program. So we're the Missouri chapter of Prevent Child Abuse America. The bulk of our prevention programming is actually in child sexual abuse. So we offer a lot of programming that is geared toward preventing child sexual abuse. So I was happy to hear you talk about prevention. I'm hoping we can talk more about that. A lot of programs that are for parents, caregivers, just any adult who cares about kids. There's a role. Our mission is empowering adults with solutions to make children safe. Oh gosh, Meg is in the audience here. But we believe that there are that everybody has a role, and we're going to help you find it. So we help. And then finally, something I'm going to talk about later in this is something that is a huge part of our work is our legislative advocacy. So we have a presence in our state capitol. I actually just left Jefferson City, where we advocate on behalf of our child advocacy centers and the various area issues that they're involved with. And sex trafficking, exploitation right now are some of the fastest moving issues that are being considered, both here in Missouri and federally. We're kind of racing to catch up. So I'm happy if there's time to talk a little bit about what's happening in Jefferson City, because it is definitely the hottest topic right now and also kind of least understood. So we want lawmakers to care about it, but we also want them to do the right thing. So I hope there's some time to talk about that.
Well, thank you. What an amazing panel of experts we have here today with us. So I know that the conversation is going to be great. So I'm going to start with Stacy, and then the rest of you can chime in. We just really want to understand the issues better. Will you share some of the common myths that might make it difficult for caregivers to protect their kids or recognize when something has happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. I think that's a great question, and it's a good place to start. I would say that one of the largest myths is that this happens from somebody they don't know. Data is showing us that 70 to 90% of unsafe people are people that they know. And I think that brings up a problem for us as parents. If anybody has been around long enough to have either heard this or said this to their children, is stranger danger. And although I think that's a good thing to consider, I also know that now that we know what the data is telling us, that that's not always going to be completely helpful. So I would say that what we really want to do is we want to make sure that our children understand what it is that and who it is that could be causing them some danger. I think when we are using the phrase stranger danger, we're giving ourselves a false sense of security, that if our children run from dangerous people they don't know, that they're safe. Another common thing that I told my children is teaching your children to say no and run. That's another common thing that if you heard that as a child or spoke that to your children. But because unsafe people are probably someone they know, a lot of times there's power differentials. And that means that we have told our children to be respectful of adults, and we've told children that adults are correct. And I think just some really easy ways to start thinking about this a little bit differently is giving your children the right to say no to adults. I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger, when I would leave a family event, I was told, go give everybody a hug and a kiss and walk around the room. And although that seems sweet, now we're realizing if unsafe people, 70 to 90% of people that are finding themselves in this situation are from somebody they know, I think there's other ways we need to be thinking about this. And I think giving your child the right to say no to an adult in a respectful way is actually a great tool to use with them and get them comfortable with. And I would even say a really practical way for you to start doing this if you're a young family is when you are tickling your child. And if your child says no to tickling, for you to stop immediately and say your no means no. And if you start training them and that becomes a normal conversation that your no means no, then that's going to help them be able to formulate some ideas about, as they get older, that it is okay to say no to an adult. It is okay to respectfully back away from an adult that they feel uncomfortable with. So I just kind of wanted to start with some of those really like old school thoughts that we've had and just give some of that practical explanation. And I know one of the other objects we wanted to like really hone in on is sextortion, which I'm not sure if everybody knows about this, but there was a great conversation going on before we started. So I was going to let one of these other ladies kind of, I think you were one of them, talking about some more of what that means and the myths of that.
Yeah, I think if I can kind of hop in on that, I think that's really helpful. And when I talk, I realized too, I didn't really talk about my role of part of what I do is go into the schools and talk to kids, kindergarten, even preschool through 12th grade about digital safety. So I do 45-minute lessons all the way to like more specialized healthy relationships groups that deal a lot with online safety, but also offline safety as well. And realizing that that stranger danger narrative still isn't the most effective narrative, because even if we would recognize, okay, this person who just started chatting with you yesterday or last week is technically a stranger to them. They're like, no, they're the love of my life. We've been chatting for 5 days. They still don't have that kind of understanding. Like to them, still, it really isn't a stranger to them. So it's still not necessary to them. That is someone that's known, even though we would still want to say, okay, well, we don't know them face to face. They're still not someone that you should necessarily trust or take at face value what they're saying. It's still not necessarily the most helpful narrative to use in the teaching methods. But just in terms of what sextortion is, I guess I'm not sure if there's going to be another question on how to sort of define what that is, or if we should just jump right into that now. Jump right in. Okay. So part of what I teach, and I try to teach kids from like 6th grade onward, what is sextortion. I also talk to parents about this as well in my parent presentations, because I think that part of what we should be doing for kids is teaching them, just in the same way we should talk to kids about anatomically correct terms. I think kids deserve to understand what these terms are. And I've seen kids' eyes light up with like, oh my goodness, that's what that was. That happened to me. And after I go into the schools, usually there is some kind of a disclosure, because kids realize like that's something that happened to me and that wasn't okay. And it wasn't just me being a bad kid. That was a crime that happened to me. So sextortion is a combination of the words sexting and extortion, or blackmail or bribery. And the way we see it play out all the time, over and over and over again, because predators are not very smart and they're not very creative. What happens is they will start chatting with someone. Sometimes this hook only takes like less than an hour. I've worked with kids where it was like, conversation started and within 20 minutes they had already sent a nude image to this person. So it really doesn't always take very long. Sometimes it's very quick. So they start chatting with the person. Maybe they want to send that nude image. Maybe they feel pressured to send that nude image, but they send the nude image, and then this other person turns around and says, okay, if you don't send me $500 by this time tomorrow, I'm going to send this image out to everybody on your followers list. I've got a group chat ready to go and I'm ready to send this off. Or if you don't send me more of these images, I'm going to show up at your school and I'm going to show it to everyone, or I'm going to hurt you in some way, shape, or form. So it's making some kind of a threat unless they receive either more of those images, some kind of favor, or some kind of money. Usually, boys are being threatened more often in financial ways, and girls are being threatened more often for more nudes. And this is actually happening to boys twice as often as it's happening to girls, which is something that was genuinely shocking. That's just what is reported. So we were chatting earlier that that might actually be a number that's much higher that's happening to boys. That was just what's reported by the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. So we think it's really, really important. That could kind of fall into another myth that we have, that this is something that might be happening more often to girls than boys, because typically when we're thinking about sexual abuse, the data that we have so far suggests it's happening to girls more often. But this is something that's happening to our young boys, and they're typically not reporting it, and they're typically more likely to engage in self-harm behaviors. So it's really important we're talking to our kids of all genders, especially boys, saying that if something is happening, if somebody is threatening you, if anybody is trying to make you do things you are uncomfortable with, or even if you sent, I tell kids, I don't care what the lead up was. I don't care how many of those images you sent. I don't care what that buildup was. If you sent it and someone is threatening you, that is never okay. And predators and abusers will sometimes turn around and say, well, you're the one who sent that image and you're a kid, so you're going to be the one who gets in trouble. That's child pornography, so you're going to be the one who goes to jail. And kids will feel really threatened by that. They'll feel really terrified by that. But that's a lie. And so it's really important for kids and parents and guardians alike to understand that if their kid is being threatened in any way, even if it's another kid on the other end of that line, but usually it's not, that is a serious crime that's been committed, and that they need to report that as soon as they know that happened. Even if it's something that happened a couple years ago, if they report that, that is going to be and needs to be taken very, very seriously. So that's my 2 cents, or maybe 5 cents or 10 cents on the topic. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in, but it is really serious, and our boys need to be protected from that just as much as our girls do.
So I guess a question would be, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but how do you have this conversation with your children? And I guess Michelle and Stacy, maybe you can weigh in on that, because the conversations when you have the children, how would you give some examples of how you would speak to maybe a 4-year-old versus a 10-year-old or 15-year-old? How would you share that with them?
I think one of the most important things to consider is to have the conversations. Having the conversations, however you best can, is just so important from as young of an age as possible. Talking with them, making it the norm in your family to be able to talk freely about things that they might be worried about. If there are times that you are worried, or just maybe you haven't had these conversations and you want to begin having them, talk about, you can just have these conversations casually. Maybe you're going for a walk with an older child. Maybe you are doing chores around the house. You can say, hey, I heard about this on the news, or have you ever heard about this? Just bring it up and see what they might have to say about it. And I believe that a little bit later we'll talk more about what to do if you are worried that your child may be a victim. But having those conversations just in general is so important. With younger kids, just talking about safety, body safety, what's okay, what is not okay. Kind of like Stacy talked about in the beginning, they don't have to give everyone a hug at family gatherings, and that's okay. And that doesn't mean that they're being disrespectful or rude, or that they're going to be in trouble if they don't do it. Just putting that information out there to normalize those conversations in the beginning and always. I hope to have those conversations with my own kids, even as they become adults, because as was mentioned earlier, we care about their safety and their well-being always.
Yeah, and I would say, as someone that's already raised their children, the one thing you want to do more than anything is protect your child. And I think sometimes, because we have such a desire to protect them, we do it a little bit too tight. And we kind of try to control all of their avenues. And when I was thinking through this, I was thinking about that in parenting, and just thought about this concept of, if you like protection for your children, protection is going to come from connection, not control. And what I mean by that is that what you need to be working on is how to connect with your child. Because you will never be able, if you're in this room and you were a teenager, you know that your parents were never able to control everything in your life. But where the place is going to be where you're going to have the ability to talk is with the connection. And I know it gets scary, And the common thing, your kid tells you something that you don't want to hear, or they're doing something and your heart goes like this, and you're getting like, they're going to they're going to get hurt, even like crossing the street. You got to look both ways. You know, we get so panicky. And my suggestion for you is take a breath, get calm, because your kids can sense when you're like that. And I would say, I use this picture a lot for when I'm trying to explain, and I hope this is a good picture for you. Pretend like you're on the same side of the table with your kid, not on the opposite side trying to convince them to come to your side. I hope that's a picture, because it's a different conversation when I'm trying to tell my child, I don't want you to do that. That's wrong. That's going to hurt you. To, so what do you think about that? Can you see? I wonder if there's ways that you can see how that might hurt you. Like, what do you think? Being curious. And I know you have the answer, but giving them the answer sometimes is not as good as prompting them to find the answer. So I just think some of those conversations, I think we need to slow ourselves down, and we can talk about the repercussions later, but in those moments, we want to really approach it with curiosity, taking a deep breath, being calm. And I think there's different reasons for different age groups. So if I can kind of just step into that for a minute, I do want to say one of the things that is disturbing, but is data, is that the average age, unfortunately, is 12. So that means kids that are younger than 12 that this is happening to. So we got to have these conversations when they're younger, and how we have those conversations. And just like I mentioned before, using opportunities to just play the game of tickle. And really, I mean, I know that sounds silly, but you're teaching your child that they can say no and other things. So the reason why the data shows us that the reason why people and how people approach children that are young elementary school is about secrecy. That's how they pull them, because they understand that that's the adult and they have to do what that adult says. And so they have to keep this secret. So something you can tell your child to just help them with the concept of a secret is you can say, surprises are fun and they're soon. Secrets are not okay. Because if there's a secret about a party, that's a surprise. Yeah, we're going to keep that because it's fun and it's going to happen soon. A secret is something that's ongoing. So explaining to your kids that if somebody is telling you to keep a secret, that's the first time you come and tell me. Now these are the younger kiddos, okay? So about I would say middle school, the way they attach or they try to attract these children is more about flattery. And I'm just pulling on that, like telling them they're amazing, like just this flattery pulling them in. So explaining to your kids that like gifts should never be a secret. If you have a gift, that's something you should be able to share with somebody. These are just because that's kind of the way they use. They're going to like try to convince somebody, they're going to give them something. So that's a kind of a practical way. They could say flattery like, you're different. You're my chosen person. You are so different from the rest of the kids at the school. I mean, unfortunately, we're seeing through the state of Missouri that I think in the last year, I've seen 4 either teachers, principals, school administrators that have gotten in trouble about this topic. And so I think other ways that you can help them, like I was trying to think, what's some practical things you can do with your children? So maybe when you're watching a movie and somebody tells a secret, you can say, stop it and just kind of ask them, so what was that secret about? Was that an appropriate secret? How does that secret, Was that something that they should keep as a secret? And like, Michelle was saying, making it very everyday situations where you just have a moment to step in there and share something. I think when it gets to the high school age, we're getting a little bit more scared because now it's romance driven. And I feel like we also have our most arguments with our teenage children. And so I think that's the really big time where, like Michelle was saying, trying to model that they're not going to be in trouble if they tell you something. I mean, that's hard. If your kid tells you they're doing something wrong, you just want to correct them. And I think that that's the kind of conversation, if you have teenagers, that you can sit down with them and share with them, like, I know normally when you say something to me, it's made me get nervous. And I know I've acted big, but I'm going to really try not to do that because I want you to feel super safe with me. So those are just some things that I was thinking practically by age, how unsafe people are coming at children, and practical ways that you can try to help them get on the same side of the table with them, make it normal conversations, and tell them, especially young kids, if your tummy's feeling weird, that's something you need to come tell mom and dad. Their bodies are going to tell them something's not right. So that's just some ideas. I know I took a little bit of time, but I thought pretty deeply about that because I wanted to give everybody some very age-specific, what traffickers are looking for and what you can do at that age to try to help them to be able to be as safe as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I'm really glad you brought up, like, where do you feel that in your body? Because that's something that all ages, all developmental stages, it's really important for kids, tweens, teens to understand how does that make you feel. That helps them develop those critical thinking skills of if something's making you feel off, that means that that's off and you need to learn how to trust that intuition, because I find the kids that I work with, their guts are really smart. So trying to teach them to trust that and understand, like, if you feel weird about that, even if you can't name why, go talk to your trusted adult, go talk to a counselor, go talk to a teacher, go talk to a therapist, go talk to your parent or whoever is taking care of you. Another thing that I've noticed makes a difference to kids, even though every time I go out to the schools and I say the word sexting or nudes, all the kids collectively are just like, ugh, like, I know that it makes them feel awkward and uncomfortable, but I'm always like, I don't care if this is awkward, because you deserve to know that you need to know what is going on here, and you need to know how this can get twisted and go sideways and be really hurtful for you. And so just letting them know these conversations are going to be awkward. They're going to be uncomfortable. Don't expect that they're going to be comfortable. Let your kids know, I don't care if this is uncomfortable because I care about you too much. And I want you to know that you can always come to me even if it's weird. Even if you feel weird, I want you to know that I'm here and you can trust me. And I want to be able to hear from you, even if it's weird. I think that can go a long way. Also, letting kids know that, like, a lot of what's happening is that you care about their safety, that you are scared for their safety. I think some amount of vulnerability can mean a lot to kids, that it's not just that you're trying to punish them or kill their vibe or trying to, like, be overbearing, that, like, I've seen it make a difference to kids that, like, this is not about punishment or oversight. It's that you are scared for their safety. And I think the young mind doesn't quite connect those risks or those consequences or the severity of what can happen with this. But seeing a parent who is like, I am trying to keep you safe right now, that can really make a difference to someone as well. And just continuing at all ages, at all stages, all the time to affirm their worth. Because a lot of these kids get hooked into these romance scams, these sextortion schemes, all of these things because one person said one nice thing about them. And if they've already experienced trauma, if they've already experienced severe insecurities or doubts about their self-worth, all it takes is that one person telling them they're beautiful or sexy or cool or interesting. So as much as the positive adults in their life can tell them positive things about them or get them to feel or see positive things about themselves, that really can make a really big difference. So continue to positively affirm the young people in your life, like, all day, every day.
Yes. So let's talk tools for a moment. Jessica, can you tell the audience about the different resources that are out there that they can use that will help them talk to their children about these things?
Sure. So for those of you who weren't recording when Stacy was talking and literally did an age group by age group tidbit, because that was beautiful. So I wish I just record that and send it everywhere. So that would be a resource. But for if you're looking for something like that and you're really looking for, okay, I've got a 2-year-old, I've got a 4-year-old, I've got a, and then I'm moving into the adolescent, and you're looking for, there are some resources available. So 2 that we're always pointing you to are that are free. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has a whole, NECMEC has a whole slew of free resources for parents and for those of you who work with children in your professional capacity about how to speak with your kids, and they do it by age. So there's programs for you to get yourself educated and then to educate your kids and have conversations, help you kind of break through that. So NECMEC, and then also Know to Protect is a free program available from the Department of Homeland Security. I printed out, there's a lot of resources on the table out there that that Monaka gave, as well as I brought one from NECMEC. So those are listed on there. So if you grab some of our brochures on commercial sexual exploitation of children or whatever those, you'll be able to find that. So you don't have to write it all down. But something I really want to emphasize when we're talking about resources and trainings and not is that we believe that adults do retain a lot of responsibility for preventing. And so the first thing before you speak with your children about this is to get informed yourself. And so like a really excellent training that's available throughout Missouri is a training called Stewards of Children. And that's a 2.5-hour training. It's suitable for any adult, not just parents. And, it starts off with know the facts. Like, what is child sexual abuse? Who is vulnerable? Who is vulnerable? How can you recognize it? How can you create a culture of safety? There's programs that are, you have to make sure that we talked a lot about setting boundaries and consent. All of that, you can learn more about that in a training like that, and I encourage everybody to take it. And that's a training that's available. We've got facilitators trained to deliver that all over the state, including several at CAC of Northeast Missouri. So I left a bunch of information about that on the table. So there's a lot out there. And it's all very digestible, very accessible. And so, meant to take the fear out of speaking with your kids about it. But first, I think I'd, take a look at yourself and get yourself comfortable with the issue. And remember that kids know more about sex than we think. And so you have to just know that yourself before you approach the conversation, that they probably know more than you think. And so you need to make them feel comfortable having these conversations and, acknowledge that sexual discussion is everywhere.
Yes.
I forgot to mention earlier, child advocacy centers in general are great resources for lots of information. We have prevention education programs for children as well, different but similar in some ways to what Lauren talked about. From preschool all the way through high school, but for adults and caregivers as well. So I also have a sheet on one of the tables out there that lists all of our programs that we have available. In addition to our prevention education programs, we have a commercial sexual exploitation coordinator within our center who helps us whenever we have cases come in for forensic interviews that involve trafficking or exploitation. She provides additional support and resources for the investigators, the caregivers, the victims as well. She also has a really great list of trainings, and if anyone is ever interested in that information, we're happy to share it. I also have business cards out there for anyone that would like more information than what's on the table. But that knowledge really is power. Like Jessica said, educating ourselves is going to give us all the tools that we need to have those great conversations with our kids.
Okay. So, what are some of the safety concerns about online use, and how do you keep your children safe? And it's open to anyone. I know, Lauren, it's kind of your area.
That's a big question. Yeah, so I think, do we want to break it down by like age range, or maybe I can kind of break it down by age range? I think there's so many different safety concerns online. So for younger kiddos, I know there's certain apps, certain things. I'm just going to start with Roblox because I think it looks like it's geared towards the younger kids. It's definitely geared towards younger kids. But when you think about it, it's like, well, where are child predators going to go? They're going to go to apps that look like they're geared towards younger kids. Tragically, unfortunately. So one of the detectives that we partner with, we partner with a series of specialized law enforcement. So in St. Charles County, we partner with the Missouri Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And one of our partnering detectives out there said that 1 in 4 of his child exploitation cases is coming from Roblox. So just to be aware, there is no singular app that is safe. So like one of the games activities that I play with some of the kids when I go out to the schools or when I'm talking to kids is like safe versus sus, like getting them to think, okay, is this app a safe app? Do we think it's like mostly okay? Or is this a sus or suspect app where it's like, no, there's some creepy stuff going on here? We try to play the game of like, do we think this is okay or not okay? And even when I go out to the schools, most of the kids are able to identify. Most of them are actually sus is the category that they put them in. Most of them are like, no, we've heard some creepy stuff. We've heard some weird stories about that. And then I'll ask follow-up questions of, well, do you go on those apps? And they're like, well, yeah. But they're still able to identify that there's, a lot of creepy stuff that's going on there. So no app is safe from predators because anyone and everyone can get onto apps. Most of the apps, even if they have age verification, whether it's that they're supposed to be for little kids or whether it's that they're supposed to be for only adults, you just click a button, right? So it's really easy. There's not a whole lot of apps that you have to do much to really verify what the age range is. So any app that has an age verification, I wouldn't trust it. Any app that has a chat feature is just going to be inherently fraught and dangerous. So I think one of the biggest things that we try to work with parents on, especially for their little kiddos, is making sure that if there's a chat feature and they have younger kids, disable those chat features and pay close attention so that kid is not continuing to enable the chat feature, because we just are of the mindset. And of course, we don't ever tell parents what to do, and we understand families are in different situations. So we can't give out a guideline of like, you should never give your kid a phone below this age. Like, we just can't set those kinds of markers. We understand families are in different situations, but making sure that you're paying attention to who your kid is talking to at a certain age. Do they really need to be talking to anyone on the games that they're playing? Making sure that these safety features are enabled, and if they get disabled, having those real and consistent conversations about what is this app? How did it get on here? Kids love to also explain to older adults like what these things are. Kids love to explain. They're like, you're so old, you don't understand how this works. Let me teach you. And I'm like, please do, so that I can understand this and so I can figure out like, what is this thing? So I think like chat features are inherently risky, because if anyone can request a chat, that means that literally any predator can request a chat. No profile should be taken as a safe profile. It's so easy to create fake profiles. Nobody should be taken at their word, and kids need to be talked to from a very young age. And kids can understand. They're way more advanced than we give them credit for. They're digital natives. They've grown up with devices from a very young age. They know how to navigate things. They know how to figure out stuff well advanced from what a lot of their caretakers are able to. So it's really, really important that they're not given just free reign to screens without being very near to a parent or a guardian or someone who's watching over that and paying attention, because a lot of times kids aren't trying to get into trouble or aren't trying to chat with someone, but someone pops up on their Roblox and starts offering them what's called Robux. And they're like, oh, cool, I can get a new thing on this game that I'm playing. That's great. But that's how a lot of predators are starting to get kids' attention, is by offering them gift cards or, providing them with some kind of incentive. And they think, oh, this is my new friend, and they're giving me these things. And they can't quite understand what's going on. So paying really, really close attention to that and explaining that gift that person is telling you is a secret that's not a good thing. I think that was a really good example of like a real gift that's good and fun should not be a secret from mom or dad or whoever's taking care of you. So paying really close attention to that and monitoring those things and having those consistent conversations is super duper important. And then there's certain things where it's like the average age of exposure to pornographic content is now right around the age of 8. And that's devastating, right? But I think something that's important to note is the problem with that is not just the exposure, it's that the exposure and then no one talking to them about it. And so a lot of kids aren't necessarily looking for that. There's a lot of these games that have advertisements that just have like, even if it's like cartoon, like these graphics that are really disturbing, whether that's violence or whether that's hypersexualization. And if kids are then talked to about like why that's not appropriate or why that's not okay, then kids tend to be more okay, or it doesn't affect them. So again, that just being near your child, if they're doing on their tablet or whatever device, it's really, really important that you're continuing to talk to your kids about those things and really being vigilant about that.
When you mentioned chat, it made me think about AI. And so I think, Jessica, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. What are some of the new safety concerns that AI bring about for parents?
Sure, I can start the conversation, but those of you who are seeing it every day, I'd prefer that you jump in. Um, Look, AI is something I think we're still figuring out what it's capable of. Um, AI can be very quickly used to generate photos from public images, like to make a public photo then become explicit using a teenager's face. No consent required for that to happen. Content spreads faster than it can be removed. I know that, it's swamping, but I will say that I think we need to understand a little bit more what AI is doing. I don't want to minimize the fear, but I do believe that the different programs and the tips that have already been touched on with online safety extend to AI. So, just to kind of, I do feel like the conversation that's being had like in our Capitol right now or whatever, it's like, okay, you talked about online safety, you talked about online exploitation. Now what are we going to do about AI? And it's like, put a pen in that. Now we've got to tackle AI. I do believe that we need to understand what AI is capable of and, but all of the tips that were provided already talking about online safety and working with children apply when AI is around. So like I said, I don't want to minimize, and understand that we have a lot to learn about it, but the resources and the trainings and everything we have are still good when it comes, and so your children can be protected. I don't necessarily know that it's an extra layer of fear that needs to be put forward just because of AI being the hot topic right now. But other panelists pitch in if you want to add.
One thing I want to ask Michelle a question. Can you tell us what are some of the signs for parents to watch for to know that something is wrong with their child or something has happened to them?
So, in general, for trafficking, exploitation, or any form of abuse, the signs are, I would encourage you to look for the same things. One of the biggest red flags are just changes in behavior, significant changes in behavior. So, your normal, happily, bubbly child is suddenly withdrawn and closed off from friends or family. Maybe someone that is normally an extrovert becomes an introvert. They don't want to go hang out with their friends. They don't when they normally have or they always have in their lives. Those are some of the biggest red flags. The secrets, we've talked so much about secrets. If your children mention secrets, having those conversations. What do you mean about a secret? Setting those boundaries early on to prevent something from a perpetrator from utilizing secrecy as a tool to do what they want or to keep children from telling. If you notice that your child is really irritable and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who this child is, like I can't talk with them, just changes in behavior. Take note of those, documenting, because you might start to think, okay, were they crabby like this before? Were they not? Just to help you to be able to establish patterns or to, not doubt yourself as a parent are some of the biggest things. Another big red flag that we see, especially with sextortion, trafficking, exploitation, is sudden gifts or money that they you don't know where those things came from. And we see that all the time in forensic interviews. That's often the root of how the abuse is discovered, because all of a sudden a child is having packages delivered and the parent doesn't even know where they got money from, or where these things might be coming from. And especially if they're secretive or protective of those things and don't want to talk about it, another huge red flag. But those gifts, whether it be money, they have some money on Cash App, and they're not working, they don't have a job. Those are really big red flags that we see every day. And I'm sure everyone else has a lot more to contribute.
Yeah, no, those were all great. I just had two more to add for younger kids. If you start to notice that they're using very violent or hypersexual language, or saying things that you're like, I have no idea where they have been exposed to that. It was not in our household. So that could mean that they're chatting with someone or being exposed to something online or by somebody else. And for teens, that they're maybe sneaking out or starting to engage in some other high risk behaviors. If they're meeting up with someone, that could mean that they have formed some kind of online relationship. Those are some of the red flags we see in some of our kids that we work with as well.
So, what do you do if you suspect something has happened to your child?
Like online risks or offline, both?
Both. And this is open to any of the panelists.
Well, I would just share a really simple thing, and I already said it. I just think it's really important to stay calm. I know it's a scary, scary feeling that something might have happened, but as soon as you go up, they're going to go down and they're going to get quiet. And so I feel like the best thing is to act curious, ask questions that are, that don't seem to be attacking them. And my suggestion is to not try to handle this yourself in that moment, but really, because what you need to do is you need that, again, protection comes from connection and not control. So if you can connect with them, you can be with them on the same team as them, and then you can talk about it later. Because at that point, they're coming to you, or if they're not and you're approaching them, they need to know that they're safe with you. You are the person that's going to determine how well this goes from here. And if they're safe with you, and then whoever else you need to bring into the conversation. But my suggestion is to not do it right then. My suggestion is to stay calm, let them know you care. That sounds really scary. I'm really here for you. I want to help you. Just feel safe with me, and we're going to talk about it later. I just feel like that's an important way to start, because what you don't want to do is shut your kid down. We had a situation where a parent was very scared about something that the child did, and decided that what they needed to do by advice from other people, and sounds terrible, was to sit on them and tell them they're not going to let them up until they give them the phones where they were. Now, what happened to this child is they ended up in our program, and it took months to get this child to open up, because her body was shut down, because the one person she was supposed to trust panicked because they're scared that somebody's trafficking or exploiting their child, and went to an extreme of like, give me the phone, I need the phone. And it took a long time for us, 24/7 that we're with this child, to finally feel safe enough to open up to us. So it's a really very important moment. Connect with your child, make them feel safe. The problem's not going away, but what's important is that they feel safe with you, so you can process in a way that is maybe a little bit slower, so that time can be a helper to you, even though your body's freaking out. I think you're going to get more from them if you go very, very slow. You're the protector. Don't cross the line of that, and get some advice.
I think if you're concerned that there's any kind of online like sextortion or grooming, or someone has been targeting your kid online, even if your kid hasn't sent anything yet, or hasn't really responded, but there might be a predator that's been targeting them, It's really important to not respond and tell them my kid is 13, how dare you, you sicko, even though I fully understand wanting to give them a full piece of your mind. Unfortunately, that alerts the predator. They can shut down that handle and be gone in 2 seconds. So it's important to not respond and to not delete that profile or that app, because once that's deleted, if you are planning on reporting that, that is technically evidence that could have been used. So that makes it a little bit harder for law enforcement to find if you are going to report it. So what's recommended is that you save all of that. If you can screenshot it, like the timestamps, the conversations, any of that, if you can even take pictures on other devices of that just to preserve that in case anything gets lost. And then you want to take that to whatever is the nearest police department to where you live. And you physically hand over those devices, and that law enforcement jurisdiction will know how to get that to the proper Internet Crimes Against Children unit. And that's where they can, sometimes if they do get permission from the parent or guardian, they will do kind of like the To Catch a Predator thing, and they'll assume the identity of the kid, and they'll continue to chat and get as much evidence as possible to get that predator locked up. So as much evidence as they can have, it helps their investigation if that is the course of action that you want to take. If you're unsure, you have questions, our information, we have a bunch of information out on the table out there, but this brochure right here has our number on it, and that is a 24/7 number. It's not a hotline, but we do have a 24/7 response. So if you call it, somebody will either pick up right away or call you back right away. If you have questions, you want someone to be there, we do have an advocate on call. We know that can be an incredibly overwhelming process. So if you just have questions or you need somebody to be there with you for that, we're happy to help out with that, because we know that's obviously a devastating thing, and we hope that you won't ever be in that situation. But if you are, we don't want you to be alone during that if you have to report it. So
Yeah.
I was just going to add, the your initial response really is so important, as Stacy talked about. But something that's really important to know too, if children are making an outcry, it's rarely a one-time event. It's a process, and many children will initially tentatively tell a trusted adult part of what has happened, and then completely decide whether or not to say anything else based on that adult's reaction. And another factor to consider too is also part of what Stacy talked about earlier. These perpetrators are rarely strangers to the child. They usually know that child, and oftentimes they know that caregiver as well. So that's a lot for a caregiver to process. So stay calm as you can. And if you can't stay calm at that time, I really just encourage to follow what Stacy said and say, I care about you. I want to talk with you. We're gonna figure this out, and step out and give yourself the time that you need. It's really hard not to feel all the feelings that you might have at that time. So do what you need to do to try to remain calm, because it really may determine whether or not that child tells anyone anything else after that. That reassurance is so wonderful. You did the right thing by telling me. I'm so glad. Something else that I would really encourage you to consider is to not make any promises that you can't keep, which we want to do. We're wanting to protect our kids. I'll do everything that I can. This person's never going to do that again. We can't guarantee that they'll never do that again. And another thing is letting them know that they're not in trouble. But something that I like to encourage caregivers and everyone really is to add a part to that you're not in trouble with me. When these cases are investigated, there are lots of things that are out of our control. And unfortunately, there are situations where we can't promise that the child's not going to get in trouble, even if we don't think that they should. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone, but just not to give that false promise that you're not in any trouble with me. And that's usually what they care about the most at that time anyway, is they're making that outcry to this person that they usually love. They're worried about what they think, and it means it's very important for them to know that they're not in trouble with them. So those are just a couple of additional things I would encourage you to consider if a child is coming to you.
Thank you. So we send our children off to school every day. What are the schools doing to create awareness at each level, elementary, middle school, high school?
Well, I know for us, we are in contact with a lot of schools. That's one of the things that we've been really working on this year is getting out to the schools, providing our preventative program called Reducing the Risk. And that's a 5-part program. And it's not just a program where we educate, but it's also the day after we provide the program, we have open office hours. So if anybody has more questions, or maybe something's happened to them and now they're like, oh wow, that was me, we're providing a space for that, which is kind of an unusual little thing that we do, and we offer that for schools. So I would say to parents out there, use your voice and say, hey, if there's not a preventative program, call the covering house, or make sure that if you're here in the space, we have a table out there. You can leave your name and number. We can connect with you, or any of these other programs. Use your voice and say, we need these things. What are you doing? I think parents need to ask what they're doing and then advocate for these types of preventative programs, because they're out there. We do ours for free, and I'm sure most people do, because what we care about is the children. We'll find the way to make the money another way. But the point is that we want children to be educated, even as young as, and we have been starting to work on grade school because the schools are asking us. It's not middle school and high school anymore. They're like, can you adjust this a little bit so it's more appropriate for grade school children? So those are the things I would say for parents is get the information and use your voice and say, what are you doing? And if they're not doing something, use some of these resources that you're hearing today about, and call one of these organizations and ask, can you come to the school? There's a lot out there, a lot of people out there willing and ready to help.
Yes. This is such great information, which when you have great conversations like this, the time flies. I'm going to pause and leave room for the audience to ask any questions if they have any at this time. And even online, if you want to send a question through a chat. And we do have someone that'll bring a microphone to you. So if you would raise your hand. And I do see a question in the middle.
While they're going to the questions, I just wanted to add one little thing that I was thinking personally. I think one of the things you can do with starting at a younger age is have them use their avatar instead of their picture on things. Have them use a cute avatar, but not their picture. I'll tell you a story that happened in my family. We lived out of state, and my 14-year-old daughter, I can't remember for sure how old she was at that point, met this boy when we were on a fishing trip, and they were talking to each other. She didn't give him any information, but when she got home, she had taken pictures of herself in front of our apartment complex and had the street sign behind them, and he found us. It took less than a week for him to find us. So doing things like avatars, even you doing them, model that. You don't need your picture up on everything. When you have teenagers, model the behavior that you want for them to have. Choose an avatar, and kind of say, we don't want to put pictures things behind us where people can find us, or that will identifying things. But you just using an avatar is a really easy way to still have a presence, but it's not your picture.
Hi. Yeah. So my question is kind of about the online platforms that the kids are using. They change so quickly, and a lot of them just don't get talked about as much. Like we hear a lot about like Roblox. We hear a lot about Minecraft and things like that. So I was wondering, are there like resources that we can go find that will keep us up to date on these platforms that are ever changing? Like every time we go speak to children, there's something new, and it's like we can't keep up. I have a 3-year-old. She's always on YouTube Kids. That's sus. And I'm like, but what else can we use? So kind of like what platforms should we lean towards for children, but then also how can we kind of find out more about the ones that we should stay away from?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that because I also realized when you asked about online safety, I was like, it's such a big topic. And I talk about it all the time, and it's huge and it's ever changing. You're right. When I first started doing this, I was like, I have to learn every app and I have to know how to use it. And I was like, these are out of date before I've even finished reading this paragraph about this app. So we are trying our best to keep up to date, but a resource that everyone should know about if you have kids or want to be up to date on it is Common Sense Media. And we have this guide, and it is already out of date as soon as we print it, but we do have the resources in there. And it's the Technology and Internet Safety Guide. So for those that are in person, it is out on our table. It's on in a little platform there. And it has a bunch of different apps that we think parents should know about. So the Common Sense Media link is in there. It's about 5 down on the resources for parents. But then there's also 11 popular Vault apps that you should know, 15 apps that parents should know about on the back, and then apps for parents to be aware of and alert. It's a loose leaf in there. So it's good to look over those, but Common Sense Media does exactly what you just talked about, where they are constantly looking through the different apps. They give ratings, they give kids ratings, parents ratings, they explain what it is, it shows the logo, and they're constantly updating it. I will say I've looked through some of them, and sometimes they give a more generous rating than I would, but also if we're looking at an app, we've already heard bad stories about it. So my perspective on that might be a little bit skewed, but I would say like it's a good way to kind of be up to date. So if you see an app, like looking that up just so you can kind of understand how it works and see what other parents have to say about it. But again, always be looking through. If there's a chat feature, I would say for certain age, disabling it, just monitoring that, having regular and random device checks, I think are a really good opportunity for you to just have those conversations with your kiddos. For some folks, we get asked like, what are the best monitoring systems? Bark is one that we've heard a lot of good reviews on. I think there is a cost associated with it, so that might work for some families, might not work for others. The Microsoft Family Safety feature is a cloud-based system where you can hook up different devices. So you could hook up a tablet, you can hook up gaming systems, and you can control that remotely. So I heard about a parent who was like at work and his son was supposed to be off the Xbox and he just turned it off remotely and was like, nope, you're not supposed to be on that anymore. So it's also not just about the safety, it's about the balance and like the limiting of just the brain rot that I get sometimes from like the screen time. So the family safety feature on Microsoft is a good way to kind of balance some of that out as well. But there's a lot of different resources in this, as well as just Common Sense Media is a good way to at least try to keep up on that. But having those conversations with your kids, and again, just being aware of that and limiting how much of that access they have, I think can get out ahead of a lot of those things. And just knowing that any app can be used by bad, creepy people, and letting your kids know that too. So it's like, even if you're allowed to use this app, if something strange pops up, something hateful, hurtful, weird, something that makes your gut feel off, you come tell me right away. And that's kind of the overall snapshot of what we talk to kids and parents about alike. So.
All right. There's a question in the back.
So you all shared how it's most often somebody that the child knows. So I'm just curious if you could share more about grooming, what that looks like. And I know it's not only, I think someone maybe mentioned this, but it's not only the child that's being groomed, but often the parents as well. So again, just how that happens so parents know what to look out for.
So, grooming or manipulation is the process that perpetrators use to gain the trust of the child, their family members, the community often. And they do that in any number of different ways, giving compliments to the child, again, giving gifts, having special conversations or secrets or jokes. And so a really important thing to be aware of as a parent is your gut feeling as well. Like, oh, I don't like the way that person's joking with my child. Like they think it's funny, but it's not okay. And having that conversation with your child, hey, I heard this person say this to you and I want to talk about that. That's not okay. So they just perpetrators use any number of different tactics to gain the trust of everyone and then use that trust to get children into a position where they can act out on their intentions and usually also use that trust to keep them from telling. So just being aware, we often say, our advocates will tell parents, people in your life, adults in your life that don't have kids should never want to be spending more time with your kids or offer to do those things. That's a red flag. And that's not to say that you can't ever trust anyone, because there's a fine balance in there. But that's where listening to that gut feeling, that instinct, that intuition is so important. And if you see something that seems off, talk to the child about it. Encourage those conversations.
Are there any questions from our online audience?
Yes, we do have a question, and this is for the entire panel. Can you talk about protecting children with autism?
I will attempt to give you that. That's not my expertise, but one thing I know is that they're concrete thinkers usually. And so I think being honest with them, talking straightforward with them, giving them the concrete and not coming around the sides of it for them is really, really important. I think that gives them the best way for you to communicate. And then when they communicate that way back to you, remember, this is a two-way street. And I just want to say that again, just answer the question, right? Don't get it flustered about it. They just want the information. So that's just like a very basic, but that would be my first knee jerk, is that just be very straightforward with them and black and white, because that's what they understand.
I know, unfortunately, tragically, a lot of kids with autism spectrum disorder get targeted so much more online and offline as well. When we first started doing our Children's Anti-Exploitation Partnership program, upwards of 70% of our kiddos had some kind of diagnosed disability. Including autism spectrum disorder. And so I'm really glad someone asked that question, because it's a really grave need. I know we were talking before the panel about sending specific resources, because unfortunately this isn't on the resources that we have here in person, but I can send a resource that I found for a parent support group I did for parents of kids with autism, specifically on online safety for parents of kids with autism. And it had some really great resources on kind of walking through that specifically on what that online safety piece looks like. So I can send that to the panel organizers, because I don't remember the exact link to that, but it had some really great resources that seemed really helpful to the parents, because I know that is a specific concern as well that needs to be addressed more frequently. So I'm glad you asked that question.
And I would just add, coming from an agency that specializes in speaking with children, kind of part of what Stacy said, using the concrete information types of questions that every child, regardless of their abilities, are able to understand best. So do they do better with abstract and complex, or do they do better with concrete and more simple questions or direct questions? So doing what's best, but also to be mindful, if you are needing to have a conversation, if you're worried about a child that may have autism, thinking about what environment is best for them. If you're going to have that conversation, is it best to, even sometimes different rooms in your house can elicit different types of behaviors or levels of comfort with them. So just being mindful of those things, like where is the best place to have this conversation? What are the best types of questions to ask? In what way? And who is the best person or people to have present for that conversation? All important factors to consider.
Wow. I know that you feel equipped at this point and still scratching the surface on it. We could probably talk about this all day. I want us to give our panelists a round of applause, please. We thank all of you for being here today, and we thank our panelists for being here as well. I want to invite Dee Dee. She is the owner and founder, executive director of Covering House, and she's going to provide us with closing remarks. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you for those who are attending here in person and those who are online. We will be posting this panel discussion on our website. So if you missed it or you know someone who missed it and would like to watch it or review some of the information, because I know a lot has been given to you at once, please go to our website and you can do that. I just want to say first, also thank you to the panelists in Maryland. We have had a very diverse group up here, and you've received a lot of good information from each of the panelists that are represented. One last thing I would like to say before I thank Maritz specifically is, if you find yourself as a parent facing this situation or just scratching your head and wondering if this is going on, I need you to know that this is something that you don't have to carry alone. Our first 4 clients that we saw all came from healthy homes, had good parents. All 4 were AB students in school. 1 played volleyball, 1 played the viola. All 4 attended a church, and all 4 found themselves being trafficked in some capacity. And it was new, and it was early on, and I was really on a big learning curve, and I found myself sitting with parents, mainly moms, in my office crying like, how did this happen? And they felt so alone. And so I don't want you to feel alone. So if you find yourself in that situation, please reach out to someone. I will say right now, the CAC is an exceptional organization. They are wonderful with kids and can help you navigate any of those questions that you might have. So I just wanted to encourage you that you don't have to feel alone in this. The last thing I want to do is thank Maritz and David Peckinpaugh, who is introduced the panel and welcomed you. Maritz has been a partner with us for several years now and have graciously and kindly not only opened up the theater here for these kinds of events, but we have been able to have our office space in Maritz because they came alongside us at a time when our office space, we're in the big move to wanting to build our new facility, and they graciously said, hey, come and use our space. We have plenty of it. They have saved us thousands of dollars in rent, and I just need them to know how grateful we are and how important they are in this walk with us to fight trafficking and exploitation. And just a little gift for David here, just to let him know how grateful we are. So thank you.
And as David comes to receive his gift, I want you to know that those who were planning on making a donation for the residents, that is being extended another week. So you have another week to bring in donations for the Covering House. This now concludes our session. Let's give it up for the panelists one more time. Thank you again for joining us today for this very important conversation.